Dave, we appear to be at a pivotal moment of transition where our trust in institutions of authority is falling apart. We need only look at what appears to be a seismic event, the verdict in the Trump trial, 34 convictions. Do you think it's possible or even likely that Trump will be jailed? And do you think this will become a catalytic event in this, what appears to be, again, the sort of dissolution of America?
Oof. Well, I now do think it's likely he will be jailed.
Really?
I think it's almost impossible that he won't be, in a weird way, because think about it. So he gets 34. They got him on 34 of 34. Let's put aside whether any of it was legit, which I largely don't think it was, whether it was fixed because the DA was a Soros DA, and that they basically set up the entire system to get this guy, and it's on charges that no one else has been brought against, and all the rest of it. Put all of that aside. 34 of 34 charges. Right, they hit him with, and now the judge has till July 11th, and it's just up to the judge. The judge is the one that sets the sentencing. I did some checking on this because I was like, I think I know that, but I asked a couple of my friends who are legal scholars. It is simply up to the judge right now. So that one man can basically decide what to do. So he could basically say to Trump, okay, you know what, it was a while ago, you're running for president, it doesn't seem good for the country if we throw you in jail, so we'll just fine you, or you can't do business in New York anymore, or something like that. But I don't think he's going that route. They just presided over this thing for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And I think he's going to look at it and now think that he's the hero in the story. And how do we end Trump? We end Trump by putting him in jail. Even if you only put him in jail for 2 months, you know what I mean? Like, you just do something that furthers the thing. Like, for all the stuff that you and I talk about that we're trying to make the world a little bit better or make people understand the stuff a little bit to the extent that we can, it's like the stuff pretty much gets worse all the time, right? Like, not everywhere. In some places it doesn't. You said to me right before we started that you were thinking about moving to Florida. It's like, it's working here on a day-to-day basis. That's why everyone that comes into my studio here, they say the same exact thing. I'm thinking about moving to Florida. The thing can work, but largely the system has just been getting worse and worse and worse. And I think at this point, because there's been, maybe you can think of one, I can't think of one moment in the last couple of years as it's pertained to all the big stories where suddenly things got a lot better. You know what I mean? Where we didn't just continue on that path of, everyone said, oh, it's so crazy, right? Everyone every day, it's so crazy. How's the news? It's so crazy. It's nuts. And then it's like, 2 weeks later, it's nuttier. It's never like, oh, it did sort of get back to normalcy. We stopped pretending that boys are girls or whatever the other things are. Now, there are pockets where that is happening properly. Again, this place where we kicked a lot of the woke stuff out of schools and everything else. But at a national or even, I guess, global sense, it seems to, the energy is just, the entropy of it is that it'll get worse and worse. So it seems to me that the story of Trump, like you've been talking about your own story and your own journey and all that the story he's on is now he is going to end up in jail. I don't know what that does to the political part of all of this. I sense it's going to rightfully enrage a whole bunch of people, and I don't know where that puts us as a country. And as you said before, half the people believe one thing, half the people believe another thing. How do we arbitrage those situations? But I see almost no way around it. And the other part, I don't know if you know this, but you know, when they appeal this thing, it gets appealed to the Supreme Court of New York, obviously not to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court of New York has 5 black female judges. Now, I don't judge anyone based on the color of their skin or on their gender. However, it is virtually, someone ran the numbers on this and one of my guys can correct me, it's virtually impossible statistically to have a court makeup of 5 black women. You know what I mean? So DEI and diversity did get these women, at least some of them, the job. So then you have to think, do they all kind of think the same thing? And do they think judicially the same thing? And do they all kind of think the same thing about Trump? And what a horrible thing to have to think about, that just because of someone's skin color and gender but so you can basically assume that when it gets to appeal, because they're obviously going to appeal it, the appeal will be denied. And then you can basically assume that the judge is going to throw him in jail. And by the way, I hope I'm wrong about all of that. I hope someone will watch this in 2 months and be like, Rubin really screwed that one up.
Vis-a-vis the Supreme Court point, I suppose the argument that has been made out of progressivism is that if there's 5 white men in their 60s that are presumably heterosexual, like that you could make a comparable argument, although demographically it's different because of the makeup of the country, would, aside from
sure, but we can play that out a little
bit. Yeah. I feel that we're in a kind of Tolkien-esque moment where things have become like mythically significant, and I don't see how this can lead to anything other than further despair. And I recognize that you made a good point, even though you're aware of all of the various sort of rationalist intellectuals that will come out. So don't be ridiculous. The Second World War was a disaster, and more people than ever before have been pulled out of poverty. There are a lot of people who can create statistics that make you feel like, oh, actually, no, everything's great. Right. It doesn't feel like that. It does feel that we are in a period where, and one of the trends I've observing is that significant events appear to be geared towards legitimizing more measures of authority. Mm-hmm. And this, to me, seems like I wouldn't be at all surprised if we saw more martial law, more demands for lockdown. How do you feel about that as an idea? Hey, this is exciting. We've got a great partner today. It's Rumble. But beyond Rumble, it's Rumble's latest venture. Let me ask you first, are you a Sleepy Joe type character with zero cognitive performance, struggling to muster focus and brain power for basic things like running the United States of America? You've got to stop drinking woke liberal coffee that hates you and your way of life and start your day by drinking Rumble's very own 1775 coffee. This is going to be the best tasting coffee you've ever had. Seriously good, ethically sourced from a family farm in the high altitude mountains of Bolivia. Not in the Bolivian lowlands, run not by a family but by a single man still living with a pet. No! Instead of waking up and drinking your big corporation-owned woke ideology coffee that's probably making you sick from the pesticides it's sprayed with, try Rumble's 1775 revolutionary coffee. Support freedom of speech. Build a parallel economy that actually values you and loves you. My favourite? It's dark, of course. I've always found the lure of the dark irresistible. I'm sorry, how can I stay mad at you? You're just going to have to wait over there for a little while. Level up your morning routine with a 1775 coffee. Sleep all night knowing your hard-earned dollary-doos are going towards supporting freedom-loving creators like me on Rumble. Visit 1775coffee.com now, pick up your first bag, use the code BRAND to save 10% on your first order. Oh, come on. Why choose, Okay, back to the content.
Oh, I think you're completely right. Look what you and I, just telling people what we think. And we have various points of agreement and disagreement. I think over the years, at least from the way I've known you, or for the years that I've known you, I think we've come together on a lot of things, but I'm sure we're not together on everything. And by the way, as you know, that is completely irrelevant for a friendship and everything else. But if you think about the things that you've been censored for. Why did we both end up working with Rumble? I mean, why did I create Locals that ultimately merge with Rumble? Why did you, when you started talking about this stuff more and being more outwardly, being more outward about your political views, why did you go towards Rumble? It was because of free speech. Was it because you were saying anything crazy? Were you saying anything racist or bigoted or anything else? Why did you just spend a year of your life being attacked by a system? Why did the system look at you and be like, I've got to attack him? Well, it was because you were saying true things, right? I mean, it's not much more complex than that. To whatever extent that I've been saying true things, it's the same story, and it's obviously not just us. Why does, I mean, the picture that you pointed out that we keep from the New York Times right there, that's a front page Sunday New York Times, where they called me and Jordan Peterson and Milton Friedman and Ben Shapiro and a couple other people, Thomas Sowell, the heads of the alt-right. So I love that right there, because it shows what fabricated nonsense they've been throwing at us forever. But your question was about, does this all lead to more authoritarian systems? And of course the answer is yes. I mean, Canadian truckers, ask them about what happened to them. You know, all they did was say, hey, can we go to work? Can we put some food on our family's table? And Justin Trudeau literally shut down bank accounts. So, froze bank accounts for these people. And then they didn't have anything. I mean, and that's just a test. To me, what it seems like we're going through is just a series of tests. Can we silence a certain set of people online? And yeah, if you're not as popular as Russell Brand, can they delete your account and no one will ever hear of you again because you have no other means to get the word out there? Of course they can do that. So what can we do with a guy like Russell Brand? Well, with Russell Brand, maybe we'll demonetize his YouTube channel. That might curb him in a certain way. Because then he goes, well, I have to put food on the table. Sure, I've got a lot, but I'm still allowed to make a living doing what I do. So I won't talk about those topics that they don't want us to. That was, again, largely why I started Locals and Rumble in the first place. I could just see that coming down the road. I started my YouTube channel in, I think, 2013. So I've been in the game long enough to see where it was all happening. You could talk about this and nobody would see your videos. You talk about that and then a lot of people see your videos. And then you start, it's a little bit like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. You start seeing the map in front of you. And so that's what led me here to create all this and everything else, and then be connected with people like you. But if you look at freezing of bank accounts, if you look at what we now know through Twitter files is government and big tech collusion to silence people. One of my tweets was on the list. I mean, Congressman Jim Jordan literally they had a congressional hearing talking about who they've censored, and I was on there. So the government worked with big tech to censor me. You don't get anything, by the way. You know that? You don't get $50. You don't get a letter. You get Jim Jordan said that to me at the Capitol. He said, you don't get any. Nobody apologizes. You don't get a handshake from the janitor. You get nothing. But the point is, in terms of control, well, if they can control your bank account, which is also why they're trying to get us more towards central bank currency, digital currency, and they can control what you say, and they can basically be looking at your phone. And again, some of this is conspiratorial in that we don't know exactly what they're doing. Are they looking at your phone every day? Are they listening to every one of your phone calls? I don't know. And it's who's they and all of that stuff. But any thinking person knows that and this goes to what we were talking about before, that tension between old world and new world. We've been given all these unbelievably powerful tools. We have the freaking world in our pocket. Everyone is walking around with that. Everyone that you know is walking around with that phone in their pocket and can get access to everything good and bad like that. That is an unbelievable power. But with, if I could quote Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think the powers that be have not been very responsible in how they deal with it. So I see more authoritarianism on the rise. But David beat Goliath. That's the last thing I'll say on it. David beat Goliath. So we will win. The human spirit always wins. That's the point. The little guy can always beat the big guy. I fundamentally believe that. And for you, as you're having your, that's an Old Testament story, but as you're having your journey, like that's fundamentally true. And if I didn't believe that, I don't know that I could do this, because then it's like, who can you beat Google? You could beat Google. What the hell are you talking about? It's crazy.
In my read the Bible in a year daily analysis, it said, with the David and Goliath story, sometimes you feel like it's so big, how can I win? But you must become, it's so big, how can I miss?
The Death Star had one little hole, and Luke figured it out.
They got to stop building them with that.
Stupid.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.